The alien queen laughed. Humans and my species can't reproduce together. The ceiling arched like a crystal dome, reflecting the pale blue of the distant stars outside. At the center of this hall sat the alien queen, her presence commanding and impossible to ignore. She was tall, her skin shimmering like liquid silver, her eyes deep pools that seemed to look right through any visitor. Around her, dozens of alien delegates murmured quietly, their voices strange but musical, a sound that made the humans' ears strain to understand. Humans had been called here for observation. They had come with nothing but notebooks, sensors, and a deep curiosity. They were diplomats, scientists, and scholars. The human delegation moved carefully, aware of every step. Their suits were simple compared to the alien robes, but they carried themselves with a calm confidence that only humans possessed. The Queen's species had long considered them fragile, short-lived creatures with limited intelligence. But humans had survived things no alien could imagine, entire planets in collapse, deadly viruses and storms that shredded the air. That resilience, that quiet determination was invisible to the Queen. At least, she thought it was. Humans, the Queen said, her voice echoing across the hall. It was a voice that carried authority, a voice that commanded silence. You are welcome in our chamber, though your species is brief and your lives are fragile. We do not expect you to understand the complexity of our biology. You and my kind cannot reproduce together. You should not dream of it. It is impossible. Her words were sharp, designed to humiliate or perhaps amuse. She leaned back on her throne, arms crossed, a cruel smile on her face. Around her, the alien delegates nodded, their eyes glinting with approval. To them, it was obvious. No human could ever hope to mix with the royal line. No human could ever carry the legacy of their great species. The human diplomat, a man named Marcus, did not flinch. He stood tall, his hands folded in front of him, his voice calm when he answered. Your Majesty, we do not come seeking to claim your legacy. We come to learn to understand. Humanity does not always act in the ways your species expects. The Queen laughed, a sound like metal striking crystal. Learn, understand. Your species survives barely 100 years on average. You cannot even grasp the scale of time my people command. You cannot imagine our genetic history. Do not presume to lecture us on life and survival. Marcus nodded slowly. We know our lives are short. But we have learned something else. Adaptation, change, flexibility. Even in a short span, humans survive, humans endure, and sometimes that is enough to make a difference. A ripple of murmurs went through the alien council. Whispers and clicks filled the air. The Queen's eyes narrowed. She had never heard anyone speak to her in such a calm, unshaken tone before. For centuries, humans had been ignored or underestimated. And yet here one stood, not begging, not pleading, but speaking as if the centuries themselves had no power over him. You speak of endurance, the Queen said, her voice a little lower now. Endurance does not change biology. My species is perfect in our design. We have studied ourselves for millennia. You cannot change that. Humans are weak, fragile, incomplete. We are eternal, flawless, and incompatible. Marcus smiled faintly. Perhaps your species is proud. Perhaps your species measures strength only in numbers and history. But sometimes, the smallest spark can survive where a mighty tree falls, and sometimes that spark can grow into something greater than anyone imagined. The Queen's laughter rang again, louder this time, a sharp edge to it. She waved a hand, dismissing the human diplomat. Poetic nonsense. Humans cannot imagine what we are. You cannot imagine the complexity of your own cells, let alone how they could ever combine with mine. You should be grateful we allow your presence at all. Yet despite the mockery, a small part of her felt something she had not felt in centuries, curiosity. Humans were simple creatures, yet they did not shrink or tremble. They observed and spoke with purpose. She could feel the difference between their fear and their courage. Most alien species would have cowered at this level of insult. But humans had something else, something that could not be measured by science alone. After the council session, the human delegation moved into the observation chamber. It was a smaller room, lined with holographic screens and data pads. Here they could study the alien physiology more closely. Marcus motioned for the team to begin. Sensors floated over the air, scanning the Queen and her delegates with soft hums. The humans worked quietly, carefully noting patterns, differences, and consistencies. One young scientist, a woman named Leela, paused as she looked at the Queen's genetic data. Something was missing. a small gap in the records almost imperceptible. But humans were trained to notice details that others overlooked. Leela frowned. "Marcus, look at this," she said softly. "There are missing sequences, generations unrecorded. It's unusual." Marcus leaned over. "Show me." The two humans studied the data, cross-referencing it with the galaxy-wide genetic records they had accessed through their research. Slowly, a theory began to form. The Queen's species was not incompatible with humans. They had hidden it, perhaps unknowingly. Perhaps out of pride, but the patterns were clear. Where humans saw weakness, they also saw opportunity, an opportunity for cooperation, for understanding, for survival. Meanwhile, one young alien scientist watched from a distance. She was part of the royal line, but had always been curious. She had never believed the Queen's words fully, even as she repeated them to herself to stay safe. Now, she approached the human team quietly, careful not to draw attention. Her skin shimmered faintly under the chamber lights. "Your species, you are not like the others," she whispered. "You see what we refuse to see, you notice what my people ignore." Marcus turned slowly, meeting her eyes. "We do not judge, we only observe. And sometimes we ask questions, simple questions even when the answers are uncomfortable." The young alien scientist nodded, her hands trembling. "The Queen, she is proud. She cannot see beyond the traditions of her people, but the truth may be different. It may be possible." That word hung in the air. Possible. The humans did not smile, did not celebrate. They only continued their observations, noting every detail. The Queen's species, with all their pride and history, might have the ability to grow alongside humanity, but no one would know until the truth was revealed. Hours passed, and the council hall became quiet again. The Queen had returned to her chambers, but her laughter still echoed in the minds of all who had heard it. For the humans, her words were not a threat. They were a challenge, a puzzle to solve. Humanity had faced countless challenges in its history, and each time they had adapted. They had survived where others had failed, and perhaps in this galaxy filled with mystery and wonder, survival was only the beginning. As the humans packed their equipment, Marcus looked toward the great doors of the council chamber. Beyond them, stars burned silently, distant and eternal. He thought of what the young alien scientist had said, and he smiled faintly. "The galaxy believes some things impossible," he said quietly to his team. "But humans, we do not stop at impossible." And somewhere deep in the Queen's chambers, a small seed of doubt had begun to grow. She would not admit it, not yet. But humans had planted the first question. And in the galaxy, questions were dangerous, especially when they came from those who refused to be underestimated. The human team returned to their temporary quarters on the edge of the alien capital. It was a quiet space, small but filled with holographic displays, sensors, and data pads. The room overlooked the city's spires, which glowed like rivers of liquid metal under the twin moons. To any outsider, the alien city seemed perfect, orderly, and eternal. But to the humans, perfection always hid secrets, and humans were very good at noticing secrets. Leela, the young scientist who had first noticed the missing genetic sequences, began her work in silence. Marcus leaned back in his chair, watching her with quiet interest. "What do you see?" he asked. Leela's fingers moved across the holographic keyboard. "Patterns," she said. "I see patterns in the Queen's species, patterns that don't match what she claims. Entire generations of data are missing. There are gaps, inconsistencies, almost like someone erased them." Marcus leaned forward. "And you think it's intentional?" Leela shook her head. "I don't know yet, but it doesn't look like natural loss. This species has records that go back thousands of years. They are proud of their history. Why would they hide it?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Perhaps it is pride or fear. Either way, humans can learn from it. Let's see what the data says when we compare it to ours." The team began linking human genetic databases to the alien records, running simulations and projections. As the hours passed, the patterns became clearer. The gaps were not just in history, they were in reproduction, in population records, in the long-term survival of the species. Somewhere in the past, the Queen's people had lost something, something vital. "What if," Leela began, her voice quiet. "What if they are not incompatible with humans at all? What if the Queen is wrong?" Marcus raised his eyebrows. "Go on." Leela pointed to the holographic display. "Look here, these sequences, they could match ours. Not perfectly, of course, but enough to survive, to adapt. The missing generations, maybe the species could have survived with another genetic line. Humans could be that line. Marcus paused. The idea was bold, almost unbelievable, but humans had survived the impossible before. Why could they not offer hope to another species? You're suggesting compatibility, he said carefully. Yes, Leela whispered. It's possible, not easy, but possible. Before Marcus could respond, the young alien scientist from the council appeared quietly in the doorway. She moved with the grace of her people, careful not to startle the humans. I see what you are doing, she said softly. You notice the gaps, you see what the Queen refuses to see. Marcus smiled faintly. And you? I am tired of lies, she said. I have lived my whole life being told humans are weak, useless, unworthy, but I see something different. You are patient, careful, and curious. You see value where others see none. The humans exchanged glances. They had expected fear, suspicion, or pride, but not this. The young alien's honesty was rare in her culture, and it gave them an unexpected advantage. Can you help us? Marcus asked. She nodded slowly. Yes, but you must be careful. The Queen will not allow open discussion. She believes in pride, tradition, and the rule of the strongest. Any suggestion that humans might be useful will be seen as a threat. Leela turned to Marcus. We can run the simulations privately. If she ever discovers them, it could end badly for us or for her people. Marcus leaned back. We do not seek to hurt anyone. We only want truth. For days, the humans worked in secret. They mapped the Queen's species genetics, simulating generations that had been erased from history. They compared human DNA with alien DNA, projecting possible outcomes. Slowly, patterns emerged that no one had expected. Not only was compatibility possible, it could bring stability to the Queen's species. It could restore the lost generations, strengthen the population, and prevent decline. But this was not only about science. Humans were learning about the Queen's species in ways that the aliens themselves had forgotten. They discovered traits hidden by pride, empathy, endurance, hidden reserves of resilience. Humans were careful to document everything without claiming superiority. They only wanted to offer options, knowledge, and proof. One evening, the young alien scientist approached Leela privately. You understand our history better than we do, she said. The Queen does not see it, but her people are in danger. Many of our worlds are empty. Many of our cities are dying. We do not know how to survive, yet we are proud. The humans, perhaps you can show us a way without dishonoring us. Leela nodded slowly. That is our goal. We do not force, we only show. Sometimes showing is enough. The scientist smiled faintly. Then you are truly different from all the humans I have heard of. You fight with knowledge, not weapons. You do not boast of power, you offer solutions. Meanwhile, back in the council chambers, the Queen remained oblivious. She spent her days immersed in records and ceremonies, confident in her superiority. She still laughed at humans, still believed her words were final. She did not know that, in secret, humans were uncovering truths that even she could not see. One day, the young scientist brought a message from the Queen's inner court. The Queen wishes to meet you, she said. Not officially, but she has noticed your persistence. She is curious. She wants to understand what you are doing. Marcus looked at Leela. This is an opportunity. We must be careful. Any mistake could destroy everything we have worked for. Leela nodded. We must be honest but careful, show only what is necessary. Let her come to her own conclusions. When they entered the Queen's chambers, the air seemed thicker, almost alive with energy. The Queen sat on her throne, eyes glowing faintly. Her smile was polite but guarded. Humans, she said. I hear you have been busy. Marcus bowed slightly. We have been learning, Your Majesty, observing patterns, studying history, and understanding your people. The Queen's eyes narrowed. Patterns, history, understanding, and what do you hope to achieve with this knowledge? Truth, Marcus said simply. Not conquest, not pride. Truth, the Queen laughed softly, almost dismissively. Truth, humans have always sought truth in vain. You do not live long enough to understand it. Why should I allow you to waste your time? Marcus did not flinch. Sometimes, even a short life can make a difference. For the first time, the Queen paused. Her sharp gaze studied him as if trying to pierce the very fabric of his being. There was no fear in his eyes, only quiet determination. Something about it unsettled her. For centuries, she had been unmatched in intellect and power. And yet she felt a flicker of doubt. You claim to understand our history, she said. Then tell me, what do you see? Marcus gestured to the holographic display. Leela activated it, showing patterns of growth, decline, and possibility. The Queen's eyes widened slightly as she realized the humans had discovered gaps and weaknesses she had never noticed. The simulations were elegant, careful, and respectful. They did not claim superiority. They only revealed possibilities. The Queen's voice was quieter now. "This is unexpected." "Yes, Your Majesty," Marcus said. "Your species is strong, proud, and wise, but history shows that even the greatest can falter. Humans may be brief, but we can offer perspective, resilience, and solutions. You need not accept them, but you should see them." The Queen studied the display in silence. Outside, the council chambers continued their rituals, unaware of the private revelations unfolding. The humans had planted a seed of curiosity, one the Queen could not easily dismiss. That night, as the human team returned to their quarters, Marcus spoke softly. "We have made progress," he said, "not in proving superiority, but in showing possibility. That is more powerful than any weapon." Leela smiled faintly. "And we have an ally. The young scientist from the Queen's court is helping us. If the Queen listens, there is hope." Marcus nodded. "Humans survive because we never give up. We observe, we adapt, we endure, and sometimes that is enough to change the course of history." In the shadows of the alien capital, a small spark of doubt had begun to grow within the Queen's mind. She had laughed at humans, dismissed their words, and believed her pride unshakable. Yet something in their quiet determination, their patience, and their knowledge had stirred her curiosity. The Queen's certainty was no longer absolute, and somewhere deep within the human team, hope glimmered. For the first time, they could see a future where humans and the Queen's species might not just coexist, but thrive together. The galaxy, vast and silent, seemed to watch as the first threads of connection wove themselves between species who had never imagined friendship or possibility. The human team returned to the Queen's city under the cover of twilight. The sky was a deep violet, dotted with distant stars that glimmered like scattered jewels. The alien capital, usually radiant with constant energy, seemed quieter now, as if the city itself was watching. The humans carried with them only small devices, screens, and data pads. No weapons, no intimidation, only knowledge and evidence. Marcus, Leela, and their team moved carefully through the corridors that led to the private chamber of the Queen's inner council. The young alien scientist had promised to guide them, and her presence was reassuring. She moved silently, her silver skin reflecting the dim lights, her eyes alert and cautious. "The Queen will be waiting," she whispered. "She does not trust easily, but she is curious." "That is enough." When they entered the chamber, the Queen was seated on her throne as usual, her posture regal, her eyes piercing. Yet today there was a subtle shift. The faint lines around her eyes suggested tension, a sign the humans immediately noticed. She was not laughing. She was watching, waiting, perhaps for proof of what she already believed impossible. "Humans," she said, her voice firm yet softer than before. "I understand you have prepared something. Show me." Marcus stepped forward calmly. "Your Majesty, we do not come to challenge you. We come to show possibilities. The Queen's species has long believed that humans and your kind cannot thrive together. We ask only for an open mind." The Queen's lips curled into a faint, skeptical smile. "Open mind, foolishness. I will observe, but do not expect me to be swayed by simulations and words alone." Leela activated the display. Holographic sequences appeared in the air, glowing softly. Patterns of alien DNA intertwined with human sequences. The images rotated, showing simulations of how the two species might interact biologically, how their genetic structures could complement each other over generations. At first, the Queen's eyes narrowed. "This is theoretical," she said. "Fantasy, nothing more." Marcus did not hesitate. "We understand, but sometimes theory can reveal truths that history and pride conceal. We ask only for observation, nothing more." The display shifted, showing a simulation of a possible hybrid generation. It was careful, respectful, scientifically precise. It demonstrated resilience, adaptability, and even traits the Queen's people had long forgotten. Humans were not dominating the data, they were offering insight. For a long moment, the Queen remained silent. The air in the chamber seemed heavier, charged with the weight of centuries of belief. Then, almost imperceptibly, her eyes widened. The patterns were accurate. The simulations showed that her species could survive challenges that had nearly decimated entire generations if they cooperated with humans. "This cannot be," she whispered, almost to herself. "I have studied our lineage, I have known our strengths. Yet this prediction, it fits. Marcus stepped closer, maintaining calm, respectful distance. Your Majesty, the purpose is not to prove superiority. It is to show possibility. Your species is strong, intelligent, and proud. Humans are short-lived, yes, but adaptable. Our species' strength is our resilience, our ability to endure challenges no one else could survive. Together, we can complement one another. The Queen's gaze flicked between Marcus and Leela. Her pride struggled against the truth. She had spent centuries believing humans to be weak, insignificant, and yet in front of her eyes, evidence suggested otherwise. Humans had uncovered knowledge her own species had overlooked. One of her council advisors, a stern elder with golden skin, leaned forward. Your Majesty, are you to consider these humans seriously? Are we to allow their ideas to influence royal decisions? The Queen's eyes snapped to him, sharp and commanding. Silence, she said. I decide, not you, not anyone, observe only. Marcus allowed a brief, careful pause before continuing. Your Majesty, we do not wish to influence decisions. We only ask for observation. The simulations show possibilities, nothing more. It is up to your people to decide how to act on them. The Queen studied the projections again. She noticed details she had never considered, hidden reserves of strength, subtle ways humans could enhance genetic stability, and the potential to restore populations once thought lost. Her mind raced. If humans were correct, then her species' decline was not inevitable. She could not deny the accuracy. For the first time, doubt crept into her certainty. Pride and tradition battled with observation and evidence. She had always believed in the perfection of her lineage. And yet humans had shown her an idea that she could not dismiss, the possibility of survival through cooperation, not conquest. The young alien scientist stepped forward. Your Majesty, I know this is difficult. I know pride is strong in your people. But the humans, they only wish to offer hope. They are not claiming power. They are showing options. Perhaps it is time to see beyond what we thought impossible. The Queen's eyes softened slightly. She looked at the young scientist, then at Marcus. And you speak without fear, even when centuries of tradition and pride say you should be afraid. Marcus shook his head calmly. We speak with knowledge. Fear does not help survival. Observation and understanding do. The Queen leaned back, her mind swirling with conflicting thoughts. Pride whispered that humans were inferior, that their short lives and fragile bodies could never be enough. Yet evidence, clear and undeniable, suggested otherwise. Humans had survived the impossible. They had endured disasters that even her species would have struggled to survive. And now they were showing her the potential for a future she had never imagined. Hours passed as the simulations continued. The humans remained quiet, patient, careful. They did not boast. They did not demand belief. They only showed what could be, leaving the choice to the Queen and her advisors. Slowly, the chamber's tension shifted. The Queen's pride was still present, but curiosity, a feeling she had not allowed herself in centuries, began to take root. Finally, she spoke. If what you say is true, it would change everything. My people have always believed in perfection and isolation, but perhaps survival is more important than pride. Marcus nodded respectfully. It is not a question of pride, Your Majesty. It is a question of life, resilience, and choice. Humans do not seek to replace your traditions. We only offer possibilities so that your species may endure. The Queen's gaze shifted to the young alien scientist. And you believe this is possible? The scientist nodded. Yes, Your Majesty, I have doubts about tradition and pride, but the humans, they see what we cannot. They have knowledge we have forgotten. Perhaps it is time to listen. The Queen was silent for a long time. The chamber's lights reflected in her eyes, mirroring the stars outside. She thought of her ancestors, of the cities that had grown empty, of the generations lost to pride and fear. And now before her, humans offered not conquest, not domination, but knowledge, patience, and hope. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet but firm. Humans, you have shown me something I did not expect. Evidence, possibility, hope. This does not erase centuries of tradition. It does not change the past, but it may change the future. A silence followed, heavy but not oppressive. The humans did not speak immediately. They waited, allowing the Queen to absorb the weight of her decision. Then Marcus said softly, Your Majesty, all we ask is that you consider what is possible. Humans do not claim perfection. We claim resilience. And sometimes resilience is enough to change everything. The Queen studied him for a long moment. Finally, she rose from her throne, graceful and deliberate. I will consider this carefully, and if what you show is accurate, then perhaps my species can endure after all. For the humans, it was a quiet victory, not of pride, but of understanding. They had not forced belief. They had not demanded compliance. They had only shown truth, leaving the choice to the queen herself. As they left the chamber, the young alien scientist whispered, "You have done more than I imagined. You have shown her that humans are different." She sees now that possibility exists. The future may be brighter than we thought. Marcus nodded. Humans survive because we adapt, we endure, and we offer knowledge without demanding submission. That is why we succeed where others fail. Leela smiled faintly. And sometimes, that is enough to change centuries of pride and tradition. Outside, the twin moons of the alien world glowed softly. Stars sparkled in the infinite sky, and the city below seemed alive with quiet possibility. The humans had planted a seed, not of rebellion, but of understanding. And in the chambers of the alien queen, a small spark of doubt and curiosity had taken root. The galaxy remained vast and silent, but for the first time a connection was forming. A connection between humans and a species that had believed they were unreachable, unchangeable, and untouchable. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humans had shown that resilience, patience, and knowledge could open doors even the proudest species thought closed. The first step had been taken. And the galaxy, watching quietly from the stars, seemed to shift slightly, as if acknowledging that something extraordinary was beginning. The alien queen sat alone in her private chambers, her throne room empty except for the soft glow of the distant stars filtering through. Crystal windows. Her mind churned like a storm. For centuries, she had ruled with certainty, believing her species to be perfect and untouchable. Humans, she thought, were brief, fragile, and incapable of shaping the destiny of the galaxy. Yet now the humans had shown her something she could not ignore. The simulations and projections they had presented were precise, detailed, and undeniable. They revealed potential for survival, growth, and cooperation. For the first time, the queen wondered if pride had blinded her. Perhaps the endless focus on lineage, history, and perfection had cost her species opportunities they could not afford to lose. She rose from her throne and walked slowly to the balcony overlooking the city. Below, spires of silver and gold gleamed in the moonlight, reflecting centuries of glory and tradition. And yet, she noticed something she had long ignored. Many districts were quieter than they should be, fewer citizens than expected, gaps where generations should have thrived. The human's words echoed in her mind, resilience and adaptation. She realized her species' decline had been gradual, almost invisible, but real. A soft voice broke her thoughts. The young alien scientist, her trusted aide, had entered quietly. "Your Majesty," she said carefully, "you cannot ignore what you have seen. The humans are not threatening, they are offering possibilities." The queen turned sharply, her eyes narrowing. "Possibilities are meaningless if they contradict tradition. We are who we are." Humans cannot change that. The scientist stepped closer. But what if survival is more important than tradition? What if cooperation with humans is not a threat, but a way to ensure your people endure? The queen hesitated. Her mind raced through centuries of teachings, the words of her ancestors, the pride of generations. And yet she could not dismiss the truth that humans had shown her. Their simulations were correct. Their calculations were precise. The missing generations in her species, history had created gaps she had never noticed. Humans had not lied. They had only revealed reality. For hours, the queen pondered alone. She reviewed ancient records, recalling the empty cities, the lost children, the dwindling population. A realization struck her. Perhaps the humans were not just resilient, they were necessary. Perhaps they offered a future she had never considered possible. Meanwhile, Marcus and his team continued their work in secret, refining simulations and reviewing genetic projections. They knew the Queen's pride could collapse under the weight of doubt, but they did not seek to force belief. Humans never demanded obedience. They offered knowledge, patience, and time. One evening, the young alien scientist returned to the human quarters. "The Queen is troubled," she whispered. "For the first time, she is questioning everything she has believed. She will summon you again. She seeks understanding, not confrontation." Marcus nodded. "We will be ready. She must come to her own conclusions." That is how trust is built. The next day, the humans were escorted to a secluded council room. The queen sat at the head of the chamber, her posture regal but her expression tense. No delegates were present. This was a private session, an unusual gesture that carried weight. "Humans," she began, her voice firm but quieter than before, "I have reviewed your simulations, your projections, and your reasoning. I see possibilities I had not imagined, yet I am cautious. My people have survived for millennia by following rules and traditions. Change is not easy," Marcus bowed slightly. "Your Majesty, humans do not seek to overturn tradition. We only offer knowledge. You may choose what to do. Our goal is understanding, not control." The queen's eyes narrowed, studying him carefully. "And yet your presence has forced me to question the foundation of my beliefs. That is not trivial." "Indeed," Marcus said gently, "humans endure because we adapt. We face challenges that others cannot, and we seek solutions without arrogance. That is why we succeed where others fail." The queen's gaze softened slightly. She glanced at the young alien scientist, who nodded subtly. "I do not yet accept everything you present," she said carefully, "but I cannot deny its accuracy. You have shown me truths I had ignored." "That is unsettling." Leela stepped forward, displaying another set of projections. "Your Majesty, we have refined our simulations further. We can show how cooperation could restore lost generations, how genetic gaps could be filled, and how your species could thrive alongside humans without loss of identity." The queen leaned back, absorbing the information. Her mind raced. Pride battled logic, tradition fought possibility. She had always believed that perfection meant isolation, that her species could survive without external help. And yet the evidence suggested otherwise. Humans had not threatened her. They had offered insight. And in doing so, they had planted doubt. "Humans," she said finally, "your species, you are unlike any I have encountered. You do not claim superiority, yet you force me to reconsider what I believed absolute. That is remarkable." Marcus bowed again. "Your Majesty, humans endure because we observe, adapt, and endure. Sometimes that is enough to change outcomes that seem impossible." The queen was silent for a long moment. She thought of her ancestors, of the cities that had grown empty, of the generations lost to pride and isolation. And now, humans had offered not conquest, but knowledge, patience, and hope. "I must think," she said finally. "I must consult with the young scientist. But know this, if your simulations are correct, and if your species can indeed offer what you claim, then my people may endure longer than I dared to believe." The humans nodded, understanding the significance of her words. They had not forced belief. They had not demanded submission. They had only shown evidence and left the choice to the queen herself. After the humans left the chamber, the queen remained seated, lost in thought. She had spent centuries believing in the infallibility of her lineage. And yet doubt had crept into her mind, quiet but persistent. She realized that perhaps pride had blinded her to the possibilities of the universe. Humans had survived countless hardships, adapted to challenges no other species could endure, and now they offered a way forward for her people. For the first time, the queen considered a future she had never imagined. Perhaps cooperation was not weakness. Perhaps adaptation was not dishonor. Perhaps the humans, brief and fragile as they were, could teach her people something they had forgotten: the power of endurance, the value of observation, and the strength of patience. The young alien scientist approached her quietly. "Your Majesty," she said softly, "the humans are not here to take anything. They are here to show you what is possible. That is why they are different. That is why you should listen." The queen nodded slowly. "Yes, I see that now, and yet it is difficult to admit. Centuries of pride, centuries of certainty. How does one begin to let go?" "By understanding," the scientist replied. "By observing without judgment, by seeing truth without fear. Humans have shown you that already." The queen's eyes softened. She looked out at the city below, imagining the generations her people had lost, the cities that now felt emptier than they should. And she realized something profound. Survival was more important than pride. Knowledge and adaptation could restore what tradition had failed to protect. "Perhaps it is time to take the next step," the queen whispered almost to herself. "I must learn more, I must understand fully before I decide, and I must listen to the humans." That night the city seemed quieter than usual, as if it too sensed the change. The humans returned to their quarters, unaware of the full impact they had made. Their work was not complete, but they had achieved something far more important. They had earned the Queen's attention, her curiosity, and the first seeds of trust. Marcus spoke quietly to Leela and the young alien scientist. The Queen is considering possibilities she never imagined. That is the first step. Our task now is patience, careful observation, and readiness. She will come to her own conclusions in her own time. Leela nodded. And if she accepts, the future could be brighter than anyone expects. The young scientist smiled faintly. Humans are strange, brief, fragile, yet capable of changing centuries of belief. That is why they are remarkable. Outside, the twin moons glowed softly over the city. Stars sparkled in the vast sky, infinite and distant. But within the chambers of the alien queen, a small spark of change had begun. Doubt, curiosity, and the first glimmer of hope took root. The queen's certainty, once unshakable, was no longer absolute. And in the quiet corridors of the alien capital, the humans prepared for the next phase. They had not yet proved full compatibility, but they had shown possibility. They had shown that even the proudest, most ancient species could be persuaded to see beyond tradition. The galaxy remained vast, silent, and indifferent. Yet in that moment a connection was forming between humans, a species thought fragile and insignificant, and the mighty alien queen who had ruled for centuries without question. The future was uncertain, but one truth was clear. Humans had changed the course of possibility, and the queen's doubt was the first step toward transformation. The council hall of the alien queen was brighter than usual that morning, though the light came not from the crystal chandeliers, but from an unusual quiet that had settled over the city. Word had spread among the inner court. The humans were returning for another audience. This time, the queen had chosen to meet them openly. The hall, usually dominated by murmurs and clicks of approval, was still, as if every delegate sensed a change in the air. The queen sat on her throne, regal as ever, but her posture was different. Her back was straight, her eyes sharp, yet her expression carried a hint of contemplation. She had spent countless nights reflecting on the simulations, the missing generations, and the resilience the humans had displayed. For the first time, she admitted, if only to herself, that she had underestimated their capabilities, not in strength, but in knowledge, patience, and endurance. Marcus and his team entered the hall. Their footsteps were calm and deliberate, their faces neutral, showing respect but not fear. The young alien scientist walked beside them, her presence a silent reassurance. The queen's eyes met Marcus's, and for a moment the vast hall seemed to shrink. Centuries of pride and laughter weighed against centuries of observation and truth. "Humans," the queen began, her voice steady yet softer than ever before, "you have shown me things my ancestors ignored, things my people refused to see. Your presence, your patience, your understanding, it has forced me to reconsider centuries of certainty." Marcus inclined his head respectfully. "Your Majesty, we never sought to force change. We only offered knowledge. Truth does not demand belief. It only asks to be seen." The queen leaned forward slightly, her fingers resting lightly on the arms of her throne. "I once laughed at your species. I declared it impossible that we could coexist in ways beyond diplomacy or trade. I was wrong. Your simulations, your understanding, they are correct. Possibilities exist that my pride denied." A murmur went through the assembled council. Delegates exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. None had ever heard the queen speak in such a manner. Her voice carried no mockery, no disdain, only acknowledgement. Leela stepped forward, activating the holographic display once more. This time, it was not a simulation alone. It combined projections, historical analysis, and evidence of human adaptability. Patterns of survival, adaptation, and compatibility shimmered in the air, clear and undeniable. The queen's eyes scanned the display. Her heart, long guarded by pride, thumped quietly. The gaps in her species' history, once a source of shame hidden behind authority, now revealed solutions. The humans were not claiming to replace her people. They offered pathways to restore what had been lost, to prevent decline, and to ensure survival. "You show potential," the queen said slowly. "Potential for what? Cooperation, adaptation, a future I had not dared imagine." Marcus's voice was calm, steady, and confident. "Yes, your Majesty, we do not claim power over your species. We only offer understanding. Survival is stronger than pride. Knowledge is stronger than fear. And sometimes partnership is the most powerful force of all." The queen leaned back, silent. For centuries, she had ruled without question, laughing at any who dared doubt her. But now she faced evidence that could not be denied. For the first time, she realized that pride and tradition, though strong, could not preserve a species alone. Strength came in many forms, and humans had shown her a form she had never known: resilience through patience, endurance, and intelligence. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "Very well, humans, I admit I was wrong. My species cannot ignore the possibilities you have presented. If your projections are accurate, then there is a way forward for my people, one that includes cooperation, understanding, and perhaps even connection." Marcus inclined his head respectfully. "Your Majesty, we are honored by your openness. Knowledge, understanding, and cooperation are gifts we offer freely, not demands we impose." The Queen's eyes softened as she regarded the human delegation. She thought of the empty cities, the generations lost, the decline she had ignored out of pride. And now humans offered hope, not as conquerors but as partners, observers, and friends. A silence fell over the council hall. It was a profound silence, heavy with history and change. Delegates stared at the Queen, unsure how to respond. Never had their ruler spoken in such a manner, acknowledging imperfection and opening the door to possibility. The Queen rose slowly from her throne. Her movement carried authority, yes, but also humility. "Humans," she said, her voice echoing across the hall, "you have shown me truth without arrogance, knowledge without threat, and patience without expectation. My people may yet endure thanks to what you have shown us." The young alien scientist smiled faintly, her silver eyes reflecting the light of the holograms. "Your Majesty, the humans' way is different. They do not dominate, they do not demand, but they endure, they learn, and they offer solutions where others see only failure. That is why they are remarkable." The Queen's lips curved slightly, the faintest hint of a smile. She turned her gaze to Marcus. "You have earned more than observation. You have earned trust, not through power but through understanding. That is a lesson my people have long forgotten." Marcus inclined his head humbly. "Trust is earned, Your Majesty, not demanded. That is true for all species." A murmur went through the council. Delegates whispered among themselves, some skeptical, some curious. But none could ignore the change in their queen. She had laughed at humans, dismissed them, and believed them incapable. Now she spoke of trust, of possibility, and of hope. "Very well," the Queen said finally. "Let it be known, humans are welcome not only in observation but in counsel. Their knowledge, patience, and resilience may guide us as we face challenges beyond our experience." The council chamber remained silent for a moment, the weight of history and change settling over all present. For the first time, humans were not outsiders, not weak, not insignificant. They were partners. They were acknowledged, respected, and listened to. Outside the chamber, the city seemed to breathe differently. The twin moons reflected softly in the spires, and the distant stars twinkled as if the universe itself had paused to watch. Humans had achieved something remarkable, not conquest, not domination, but influence through understanding, patience, and knowledge. The Queen's gaze returned to Marcus and his team. "We will observe, learn, and proceed carefully. If your knowledge proves accurate, and if your species truly endures as you claim, then perhaps my people can thrive once more. Not alone, not in pride alone, but together with those who show resilience, understanding, and courage." Marcus smiled faintly. "That is all we have ever sought to show, Your Majesty, knowledge and understanding, nothing more." The Queen's eyes softened further. "Then let it be so. Let humans stand beside us, not as subordinates, not as rivals, but as partners. Let them help us remember what we have forgotten: endurance, adaptation, and hope." The council murmured again, but this time there was no resistance. Humans were no longer a subject of mockery. They were a presence acknowledged, respected, and welcomed. For the first time, centuries of pride and laughter yielded to understanding. Later, as the humans returned to their quarters, Marcus spoke quietly to his team. "We have done more than present evidence. We have planted seeds of trust and curiosity." "That is far more powerful than any weapon," Leela nodded. "And the Queen has seen it. Her laughter is gone, doubt has taken root, and with it possibility." The young alien scientist smiled softly. "Your species is strange. Short-lived, fragile, yet capable of influencing centuries of belief. That is why humans endure. That is why they are remarkable." The humans looked out at the city below, the glow of spires reflecting the promise of the future. They had not forced change, nor had they demanded obedience. They had only shown truth, knowledge, and patience. And in doing so, they had earned something far more valuable than victory, the possibility of a shared future. In the quiet of the night, the queen returned to her chambers alone. She walked slowly to her balcony, gazing out at the city, the moons, and the stars beyond. For the first time, she admitted to herself that pride, while powerful, could not protect her people alone. Knowledge, understanding, and partnership were stronger than arrogance. Her laughter, once a shield against doubt, had been replaced by silence. Silence that carried thought, reflection, and the first glimmer of hope. The humans had not conquered her people. They had changed the course of possibility. And the galaxy, vast and infinite, watched silently as two species, once separated by pride, tradition, and doubt, began the first steps toward a future neither had imagined. The council hall, the city, and the distant stars seemed to recognize the change. For the first time, humans were not just visitors, they were partners. And in that partnership, the alien queen found something she had long forgotten: the strength of humility, the power of trust, and the quiet courage of those who endure without fear. The galaxy remained vast and silent, but in that moment a connection had been forged. A connection between humans, resilient and patient, and a species proud and ancient, whose future was now intertwined with theirs. The queen looked out at the stars, her silver eyes reflecting the infinite sky. "Perhaps it is time," she whispered. "Time to face the future together." And for the first time in centuries, the council hall was filled not with laughter or pride, but with the quiet promise of hope.